I want to highlight an episode that I did that we mentioned in the introduction, episode 363 with Dr. Thomas Seyfried, our second time talking to him. And he said something that I found so chilling. I ended up putting it as the title of the episode because I wanted to grab people's attention.
Yeah.
Cancer is a revenue creating disease. Cancer creates revenue. What do you think of when you hear that?
I agree wholeheartedly, because I've been doing this for 9 years, changing my metabolic approach for 9 years, surviving something I should not have survived. They said 6 to 9 months to live if I did not do standard of care. And no one has said to me, what are you doing? Can we put it into our practice as an oncologist? They just tell me I'm lucky. I'm a lucky individual, and there's nothing to back me up, basically, to say that what I'm doing could help everybody. And the fact is, you can't make money out of food. I mean, you can, obviously. Ketogenic industry is taking off quite abundantly, with people selling products that aren't really good for you. But that's the same with anything. People need to make money, and I find that the lack of caring is the biggest issue in the medical establishment.
Yeah, it's really a shame.
It's a business. Hospitals run on funding from governments, and governments are funded by corporations. So it's backwards. There's no real caring or health involved, or love, in fact.
Yeah, no, it's again, it's chilling, but it's interesting that you say it that way. And I want people to think of it more of that way. If you were a business, what would you do? You would want to create customers. You create customers when you get them on your product very early and keep them on for a very long time. And that's the reality of it. These things are business. And if everybody started eating ketogenic or low carb diets, these businesses, these whole industries would probably collapse.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way they see it. It's a big threat to their organizations and their money, because money, it doesn't even matter in the way that we believe it does. It has complete control over everything we do. I am currently, because I can't physically work, like if I was to do a day-to-day job, I'd have seizures, I'd have stress, I'd probably end up dying because of the stress. So I don't work, I can't physically do much, and so I'm pretty much, I wouldn't say I'm destitute, but I am poor. I get government grants, money from the taxpayers, disability money, and it does not provide everything I need to support a family and myself. So I do my I've got my website, I take clients. But I was told recently by the benefits system that I have to declare any clients I have, because if I get any money to support myself, I have to declare it so they can reduce the money they'll give me.
Oh my goodness.
So I basically, I don't get enough clients to factor that in. I don't get enough money to support my family in such a way. My partner, she works, I think she's doing 4 days a week. She delivers milk, organic milk, to customers.
Wow.
And she gets paid very little, to be honest. And that still does not cover all our bills, all our debts, food. So we do what we can, and it's just a shame that the system is so broken.
Yeah, that really is. Wow. Well, we're certainly glad you're here today, and just so grateful that you went through what you went through to be able to tell your story. Before we get to that story, I've got one more question. My mom passed away of cancer. She was diagnosed at 38, 39, I think, with breast cancer. She did chemo. She did enough radiation that you could do in a lifetime that she couldn't do it towards the end anymore. I saw front row what was going on with the treatments, with the medications. This was like the early days of Oxycontin, so they were prescribing it like Skittles, basically, and telling her to chew them. And what I witnessed, what I would say, even back then when I didn't know hardly anything about this, is I would say that she was killed by the treatments, not necessarily the disease itself. I saw her waste away with every treatment that she got, and she looked more and more and more sick. With what you've gone through and now working with other people, would you agree or disagree with that statement?
So one of the biggest factors in me changing my decision, because I actually didn't want to do any radiotherapy or chemotherapy. I never agreed to, but they fast tracked me into the system straight away. But what scared me the most is my memory when I was quite young, I think 15, 16, when I went with my mum to see my grandfather. He had liver cancer, which spread all over his body. he was on his deathbed, palliative care, and we went to see him one last time. He didn't recognize my mother. He had no idea she was there. He was skin and bones. He could not see any muscle, fats. And yeah, witnessing that at such a young age, and when I got cancer, and when I thought about all the treatments, and it just scared the shit out of me. I had to do research. I said, what can I do that's out there? And we were brought up alternatively. So we had homeopathy. We believed in healthy food, all these things. And so I was, yeah, it's just a shock to the system to see that people just get decimated by it's radiotherapy, chemotherapy, poison plus radiation to the body. It's going to cause more problems than it is going to cure problems.
Yeah, that again, that was my experience of what I witnessed. So it's interesting to hear your opinion on that. So let's go back to your personal story. What was your life like before diagnosis?
I thought I was eating the right kind of food. I was having, it's kind of like an Italian style diet where you have lots of pasta, bread. Well, I'd say it's the American style. In fact, we weren't eating too many sweets, but in fact, no, because I was working at the time, we were having, sandwiches for lunch and general snacks. It wasn't real food. I would try and wake up and make real food, but it was a lot more effort and it cost more money to do it. So it wasn't substantial, it wasn't practical at the time. So I was working at the time. I was doing in a garden center. It was the first real job I had in my life because I was a bit of a waster. I smoked cannabis from the age of 12 to the age of 21. And then when I gave all that up, I found love. It was really funny. The whole time I was doing that stuff, I felt really lonely and really, I wanted love, but I couldn't reach for it because I was always high. I was always insecure. I'd found a girl that I fell in love with. We both quit college. We both went to get jobs. We were like, hey, let's start our lives. So I got my first real job. 6 months in, I started experiencing headaches and migraines. And one day I had a click in the neck when I was doing some watering of the plants. And I got vertigo. I was spinning around, but I was standing stock still. And so my dog's getting right in the microphone. Go away, Moss. Go away. So yeah, that happened the first time, and then I ended up having like a week and a half off. And my employer got a bit pissed off, and he said, basically, what are you doing? I said, I'll be back next week. So I started working again, and it was the height of summer. I think it was June, July, when I finished work, and I walked to meet my partner because she worked in a supermarket nearby. She was late picking me up, so I decided to walk and meet her at the big road, the main road. There was cars waiting for me to pass, so I ran through this space. It was a country road, and I got to the other side, took a drink, and as I reached back, my neck crunched like a big click, and my jaw sagged, my arm sagged, and I was like, I'm having a stroke. And I was like, I'm a bit too young to be having a stroke. And obviously, prior to that, in fact, I'd gone to my doctor and said, I'm having these migraines, these weird sensations. What is it? And they said, it's a migrainous aura. So it's just an aura of migraines, which I kind of accepted and moved on with my life, tried to deal with it. And obviously this happened, and I said, this isn't right. And I kind of Googled a few things, and it kind of came up either cancer or epilepsy or something worse. And I was like, okay, there's a problem. I'd like to request a MRI scan because it's all in my head, something's happening. So it took me a while to get referred. I think it was like a month to get referred. So I've been working on and off for that time. And once I got there, it took 6 hours for them to diagnose me with a CT scan. So I was waiting around in the hospital doing nothing for 6 hours. And they came back and said, there's a hazy patch, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. It's probably just movement in the scan. So I went home thinking, oh, I'm okay then. And then I think I was getting ready for my older sister's wedding as we were shopping a lot. And I was feeling more and more fatigued and more kind of sensitive in my head, having pain, lots of problems, lights were causing issues. And I was in a car one day, and I think we were heading to do some shopping, and I got a call from the hospital saying, we'd like you to come back in for an MRI scan because we believe you probably have brain cancer. So, I had like a biggest shock of my life because I thought everything was fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went back in for the MRI scan, and they said, yeah, there's a definite area of concern. So there's a white patch. They said it's about a couple of centimeters. I think it's 4 millimeters. Sorry. So it wasn't huge, but it was getting there. I know it's 4 centimeters. Sorry, it was. So they said you would like to book you in for an what's it called, a biopsy. So that happened in September. So obviously from July to September was a long time to wait. And in that period of time, I was just on the computer, on the laptop every night, just staying awake till about 4 or 5 a.m. and going to sleep. And then the next day doing more research. Because there was nothing, I was looking up natural cures because I was brought up on homeopathy and, the way of it's spirituality as well. So it's like, what can I do? What can I do that's more than what I'm being told is possible? So I'd done a lot of research, and there's things like apricot kernels, which is arsenic, essentially kind of poisoning the cancer. There's lots of natural cures out there. There was juicing, there was things, but they were not really applicable. They were more applicable to body cancers. So I was like looking specifically at something that could heal the brain. And there wasn't much. And I stumbled upon a ketogenic diet for children with epilepsy. So I kind of looked more into that. And through word of mouth, my family, I think it was my gran or my mother, there's a health food shop in Totnes, which is like a hippie capital of Devon, where I live. And there was a woman in town who had been doing ketogenic diet for her low-grade brain tumor. And one day I was in the same shop, and there's a woman in the shop. She said, "Hey, Pablo, go talk to that woman right now." So I went to speak to her, and she kind of basically settled it in my mind that it was the right thing for me to do. I'm sure there's probably a blank period where I'm getting it all wrong, but there was I did a macrobiotic diet for a little while as well. And in my research, obviously found ketogenic diet, but we weren't sure of it until I met this woman. And obviously, I think it was after September, after I'd had my diagnosis, and in the surgeon's room where they said they came in, basically, I'm not going to tiptoe around this. I said, well, is it grade 4? Because I kind of had a feeling it was the worst kind. And he said, yes, it's glioblastoma multiforme, grade 4. It's fairly big, and we would like to get you onto oncology. And I think in that moment, there was a kind of, I don't know, when you have a big shock, it's like everything slows down, everything's a bit more vivid. There's more emotion, but you're kind of dead as well. So it's like you're stuck between places. So there was my mom and my partner at the time. She was just my girlfriend, and kind of just holding her hands. And I look over and I see that they're suffering more than I am. Because I'm in this space between suffering, and I'm like looking at them, and I kind of felt love. And then I was like, I initially, my initial outburst was "fuck my life." I shouted "fuck my life." No, I said to myself, "This is the shittest thing that can happen in my life." And then I kind of went, "No," because they're suffering. I'm gonna try to live. I'm gonna try and learn to love this life more. I'm gonna embrace it. If I'm gonna die, I've got to do it right. I've got to do it like a warrior. So I kind of solidified that thought in my mind that there's something I can do.